Welcome, my friends, to project pack number 22. This project pack is part of our 12 Days of Zentangle series, and this is for 2023. And we are about to take a deep dive into the world of prenatal and spirals. So I am welcoming you to join me today, and we are going to be working on this beautiful ensemble piece that Molly guided you through yesterday, the beginning of this gorgeous ensemble. And we're working in spirals once again. And on this particular day, we are going to be focusing on one of these very large spirals that covers over 2 of the tiles. So before we begin, I'm going to ask everybody to just get their materials ready. Any of your pens and pencils, tortillons and sharpeners and whatever else you need right at your fingertips. And we're going to start with our pencil today, and I want to just sort of kind of map out where we're going to be working so there isn't any confusion later on. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to come to this very center of this spiral, and you'll see there's a rectangular shape here. I'm going to draw just an arced line so that you can see that that's the beginning of the spiral. Because it's only a square space in there, it can be tricky to see where the center of the spiral is. So that's the first thing we're going to do, is just pencil in that little arc. And then I'm going to put a small X in each of the spaces that we're going to be working on so that you don't get confused maybe later on when we jump across to the other tile. So each one of these little areas, I'm going to put an X in this big space here, this space here, a little bit of this space, and finally here. So that's going to cover this open spiral. And then we're done with our graphite pencils for now. The next thing I'm going to do is pick up my black Micron 08, and I'm going to divide this spiral. It's quite large, so we need to break it down into some smaller sections so we can work on those sections. Our spiral begins here, but it can be a little tricky in the center because of the small area. So I'm going to actually start doing my brackets to break up the spiral. I'm going to start about here and work in this direction, and then I'll come back and go towards the center. So with my black pen, I'm going to draw some parallel bands that go from the edge of the spiral to the inner string of the spiral. And I like to give them like a little bit of a bend at the top, almost like it's hooking on the top. See that? Just gentle little curve. It'll give that little bit of an illusion that it perhaps is going over the edge. And I'm going to draw an orbed line to make a bracket. Then I'm going to turn my tile, and I'm going to draw another bracket. You can see it'll be a little less than a pen cap width away from each other. And these brackets will spread out a bit as we work around the larger area of the spiral. A little bit larger space. and kind of cap off that little curved bracket at the top. The next bracket is going to be behind these poke leaf and these beautiful sort of peas in the pod that we have going on here. So you may want to draw it in the air, kind of visualize where that spiral might be coming from. Little cap at the top. And now, theoretically, the spiral's brackets are coming from down here where your arc is, but it needs to reach to the far corners up here. So again, we'll visualize where it's drawing behind. And imagine it's going from down here, way out here, but we're just drawing in this space. Reaching way across. And now I'm going to come back and draw the brackets towards the center. And take your time here and visualize where those brackets might go. You can see how this part can be a little tricky to start with, so that's why I like to start big where it all makes sense and then work my way to the center. Appreciating that I have this little curve to work off of here. All right, I think that's good. So now we have our space all kind of mapped up for us, and this will help us with our next part of the tangle. So I'm going to put the 08 black pen away, and I'm going to pick up the brown 05. And to continue the homage to the spiral, we are going to be filling the spiral with lots of spirals. I think I'd like to start working right about here, which is the first bracket that we drew. And I'm going to draw a variation of printemps, but have the printemps consider these brackets as a bit of a branch. So our printemps will be growing off of the branch. And I'm going to draw a beautiful spiral growing off of each side. Now watch the perspective here because we have quite a lot of space to fill, so these spirals shouldn't be too small. And as we go up this bracket or branch, my spirals will nestle behind one another all the way to the edge or to the end. Big, beautiful spiraling strokes. And as we have been known to do, I am going to go back and add some ink to these delicate lines. We have a lot of open space here, and I want to add some drama, as they say, some ink, some kind of anchors the whole tangle. And I'm putting that ink in one sort of pie-shaped area of each one of these spirals. So if you're looking at this spiral as a circle and you have a wedge shape, all of the heavy ink is in that one area. And once we have a few of them done, you'll see how it balances when you have that heavy ink in a similar orientation on each one. I remember when I first learned this sort of trick, this feature, and I thought it was so exciting because I never was really happy with my spirals and my printemps. And I think that by being able to go back and sculpt and reshape some lines that I've already drawn kind of is that wonderful opportunity to make it more the way you wanted. And suddenly I found myself drawing spirals everywhere and adding these weighted lines. So we're going to put these printemps branches on every one of the bracketed lines around the spiral. And remember, when you've got a big space to fill, don't be afraid to add big, kind of boisterous spirals, knowing now that you'll be able to go back and add some weight. And if you happen to meet up with one that you've already done, you can go behind the one that's already there. So I'm going back and adding that weight. And you'll notice, I'm sure, that the weight is different on each one. It's not exactly the same. Some of them are a little more dramatic than others. I love this idea of sort of spirals within spirals within spirals. Now this is probably the biggest space we have to work in. So here we go. Nice big spiral. So we're working our way to the very tip here, enjoying all of these spirals as they start to fill up this section here. It's really looking beautiful, and that little dramatic weight that we're adding is becoming kind of a focal point, as it often is. And I'm really enjoying how it's unfolding here. Tiny little one right there. So now I'm going to go back to where the spiral turns in on itself and fill in these down here. It gets very tiny in here, and so you're going to have to do your best to see what might just be adding a suggestion of spirals. And maybe one last spiral like that. Yeah, very tiny in there. Okay, so one last detail I'm going to add with the brown pen is in any of these spiraling branches that we've drawn, if there's a space here, you can cap it off. And if you see any open spaces, you can add an orb. It's not a whole lot, but I just like to add those in there. It's almost like a bubble just like a little space of light. And your spirals may not need that. You might have filled yours in a different way where there's no space left. Just little details, and if you want to add any spirals where you think there should be some. As the spirals are larger, you might have a little more opportunity for adding those. Just adding those little bubbles kind of wakes up that little branch. Little tiny one down here. And yeah, I think we're close to being done with our brown pen. And now with the leftover space here, these areas that we didn't touch, I'm going to pick up this peachy gold color, Jelly Roll pen. And to show you what we're going to do, I'm going to start in one of these larger areas. And of course, we're going to add a spiral. And right around in the center of this column, I'm going to add a spiral that will be mostly behind the spirals that are here. So once it bumps up into going underneath, the rest of the strokes are essentially auras as they go behind all the way to the edges. So it's really just one spiral that's bigger than all the rest. And the aura lines go all the way to the edge. So, very cool. So I'm going to work in this direction because I'm right-handed, and I'd like to give this inky gel pen a chance to dry and not drag my hand across it. Once again, just one spiral that falls behind in all the little spaces all the way to the end. So just take your time and turn the tile as you need it. Drawing these radiating aura lines. Some of these spaces, much more of the spiral is showing, but the overall effect is just that there's a spiral behind it all. Just as Bijou intended, I'm sure. And here, not really enough room for a spiral, so we'll just add some aura-ing lines as if the spiral goes on forever. Oops, a little extra here. There. And there we have our first full spiral filled in. So thank you so much again for joining me today. And I'm so excited to see how the rest of this composite unfolds and unfurls. And then we get to add some magic and see how it all turns out. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing how everybody completes their project.